We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Here.
Homobian. Aye. Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present except for Connor.
At this time, for those who voluntarily wish to do so, will you please stand as we are led in prayer by Pastor Jimmy Rogers, who is online with us. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilman McKittrick will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, in Jesus' name, we thank you for your loving kindness and your tender mercy. We ask, God, that you would continue to guide our city by your blood. Allow us to know, God, that all things are still working together for the good to them that love you and are called according to your purpose. We thank you for the city council. We thank you for our council president. God, guide her, instruct her, lead her in the way that she should go. And God, we will give your name all glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Both of us.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal. Homobian. Somerville.
Aye.
The minutes pass 11-1.
Okay. We have no items on the consent agenda, no public hearings this evening. We're going to move right into old business, planning and economic development. Councilman Fusco.
I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Which you want?
Well, I'm sorry. Time on 1 through and include 16. Okay? And on 17, I'd like to pull the committee. Although there's a substitute, would you like to read it in?
Yes. This is a substitute offered as an amendment, resolution adopting the 2023 Capital Investment and Community Development Program, legally referred to as the Capital Investment Budget, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Kamer. Aye. Baylor.
Aye.
And Mosley.
Aye.
Thank you. The report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. Helen Tomic's on the line, and I just want to thank her and her staff for all the hard work that they had put forth in terms of putting together this capital budget. We have had some robust discussions about it. We asked for input from council in terms of any adjustments, any changes that should be made. We just made one this afternoon, and it just came in, so that's why we're pulling the committee and asking for suspension of the rules. I will tell you, President Somerville, this is a $50,000 expenditure that was just added today for a study to put in sidewalks on Mall Avenue. That won't be done next year, but the study will be done to find out exactly how we go about it and estimate costs and et cetera. So that's one adjustment that was made. So with that, we're recommending approval this evening.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Nay.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 11 to 1.
Okay. Councilman Fusco?
Thanks. Time on the balance.
Okay. Councilman Neal?
Yes, Madam President, I just wanted to explain why I voted no.
Okay.
I appreciate all the hard work that has gone in, but this group of council has been together now for 3 going on 4 years. And before this council, we've asked about having a metric that we can use for equitable investment throughout our community and with our budget. And we keep kicking that can down the road. I can give you numerous accounts of, because we didn't have equitable metrics, how communities were left out and excluded. Since we partnered with, I'm going to use an example because all of us can drive through our neighborhoods and see these examples with our schools. Because we didn't use equitable metric, the school in my ward, $15 million were taken from it and put into Firestone. Because we didn't use equitable metrics, the only district with a true organic bustling population didn't even get a school because we were afraid to address the issues that come when you talk about equity. And there's parks and things in there that we've talked about. I don't see how we can go forward expending city funds, especially now since we have ARPA funds, and not have an equitable metric that we can point to. It's, again, I just don't see how we can do it. So that's why I voted against it. And I'm hoping, because all of us are going to be running next year, we're going to talk about how we're going to be promoting equity and how we want a more equitable community. But yet when our constituents ask us about budget items, or ask us even what our equitable metrics are as a council, collectively, we can't explain it. And it shouldn't be that we have to wait for us to hire someone to come in. We've been spending money using the word equity legislation for the past 5, 6 years. And we do not have a way of saying we're making equitable investment. Now, I just gave you one example in my ward. I can give you multiple other ones where there hasn't been the equitable investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. That concludes our old business. So we're now going to move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by President Somerville, resolution adopting the Akron City Council logo and usage standards and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Yes, the committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. I'll say my piece and then I'll defer to you, President Somerville. We have, for a long time, talked about, reinforcing our own identity as a legislative body. And we were fortunate enough to have a local, I believe, minority-owned business develop this logo. And Ms. Somerville, I'll ask you for further comments.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilman Freeman, and I think that you've said it all. Akron City Council has really been trying to raise the bar on professionalism in terms of how we conduct business and also how we can better communicate with our constituents and just making sure that we have our own identity, our own stamp, and our own seal as we begin to branch out and launch our social media platform and other things of that nature. So we're really excited about Akron City Council's new logo. We connected with Schuin, which is a local minority-owned company right here in Bounce. And so we're really excited about adopting this logo on tonight. So at this time, I'm just going to ask, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Roll call, I'm sorry.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer?
Aye.
Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Abstain?
Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This resolution passes 11 to 0 with 1 abstention. Item number 2, offered by Freeman, Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $27,945,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the costs of various improvements in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Committee's report's favorable, and we are asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This just allows the city to issue sale of notes in the amount of $27,945,000 for various improvements, and we thank you.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 3, offered by Freeman. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1,200,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of acquiring and equipping motor vehicles for certain divisions in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Again, we anticipate issuing a bond, and we're asking for $1.2 million for special equipment, emergency equipment, I believe it is, for the city of Akron.
Okay. Thank you so much. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, Councilman Freeman has explained this piece. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 4, offered by Freeman. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $6 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of improving the city's municipal parks and recreational system by constructing, improving, and equipping parks and recreational facilities and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Again, giving us permission to issue a note up to $6 million for improving municipal parks, recreational system, and we ask for its passage.
Okay, thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 5, offered by Freeman. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $11 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of constructing, reconstructing, and otherwise improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman.
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Street construction, reconstruction is the item that this $11 million bond will help to fund, and with that, we're asking for its passage.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 6, offered by Freeman, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1,500,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of constructing, reconstructing, and otherwise improving off-street parking facilities in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, we're asking for a $1.5 million note for the purpose of constructing various parking facilities throughout the city of Akron. We ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick? Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal? Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 7, offered by Freeman, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of the acquisition, construction, equipping, and installation of capital improvements to the city's district energy system, comprising a steam, hot water, and chilled water distribution system, a steam power plant, and a chilled water production unit, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. $1 million note for the city's district energy system. Just reminding everyone, this is a real Cinderella story. We've seen significant turnaround there in the past few years, able to provide heat and cooling for many buildings downtown. And with that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick? Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal? Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 8, offered by Freeman, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1,600,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of the acquisition of certain real property in Coventry Township and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Very good. In conjunction with Coventry Township, we'll be purchasing a piece of property for further development, and that's what this bond would be for. And with that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick? Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal? Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 8A is offered by Freeman. Ordinance amending ordinance number 81, 2022, passed March 28, 2022, and ordinance number 315, 2022, passed November 21, 2022, which established the annual appropriation for the current expenses, other expenditures, and capital outlays of the City of Akron for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Yes, the committee requested this item be referred, and I would just remind everyone we would like to pass this next week. And if you have any questions whatsoever about the different numbers in this appropriations, feel free to call Mr. Wheeler this week. And with that, we just asked we could refer this to next week.
Okay. This item will be referred.
Item number 9 is a substitute offered as an amendment offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the execution of a development agreement with White Pond Reserve LLC or its designee, providing for the sale and development of property within the White Pond Frank Boulevard Urban Renewal Plan area, finding such property is not needed for any public use and related findings and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Refer.
This item will be referred.
Item number 10, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements without the formality of advertising for bids with Gordon Food Service for the purchase of food and related materials for use in Lock 3, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Thanks. The request of the committees for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. This is for an addition of $15,000 to the food budget for the Lock 3 and the events.
Okay.
Recommending approval.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal? Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 11, offered by Fusco, ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a development agreement with FIDC 123 LLC, providing for the redevelopment of the property located at 2003 Buckholzer Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 12, offered by Fusco, ordinance declaring certain improvements to real property located in the Chapel Hill Mall redevelopment area to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes and the deposit of those service payments in the appropriate fund, providing for the payment of a portion of the service payments to the Akron Public School District, all pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 5709.40 to 5709.43, the Act, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 13, offered by Councilman McKittrick and Councilman Fusco. Ordinance amending and/or supplementing Title III, Chapter 135, Offenses Against Persons, Section 135.06, Menacing, of the Akron Codified Ordinances in order to impose a mandatory minimum jail sentence for incidents of menacing against public employees and utility workers and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Time, please.
Time will be granted.
Item number 14, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into various contracts with Summit County, the University of Akron, and/or the City of Fairlawn for the purchase and installation and maintenance of equipment, hardware, internet service, and software services necessary for the deployment of a public safety monitoring network in or around the off-campus housing area south of the University of Akron's campus, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda, please.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by Mayor Horrigan, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept and expend funding from the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company Better Future Grant and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian?
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is a $25,000 grant from Goodyear, and they have provided it every year for a better future for our young people, and this supports the mayor's youth council. And I think several weeks ago, Mrs. Snipes came with some students, a number of students that are currently benefiting from this grant, and this will allow the continuation of it to do service learning events, go out and see leaders and get mentoring, and just take advantage of opportunities to grow and become better adults. And with that, we ask for the passage.
Okay. Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick. Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We're now going to move to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. I'm just going to ask all those who are wishing to participate, please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Good evening. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to give is true? I declare. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So when you hear your name, just going to ask that you approach the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body, and we are and want to remind you that this is an official meeting. I do believe this says Mark Moore. I apologize, it's hard to read. Is Mark Moore here? Yes, thank you.
Good evening, President Somerville, and good evening to all the members of Akron City Council. My name is Mark Moore, and I've come here tonight to just give a few thoughts about the White Pond Drive project. As many of you know, I spent approximately 30 years with the City of Akron in a wide variety of roles, working on a wide array of projects, working with many of you on projects. I look back, it's fun to ride through the city now and see things that I did have an opportunity to be a part of. It's really thrilling. But probably most importantly, I look at projects that I think really ensured the long-term viability of our city. I was blessed to be able to work on the Community Learning Center program for many years, and a number of other projects. So when I retired, I had a family opportunity that took me out to Avondale, Arizona. And if you know Phoenix, Avondale's in the West Valley. I'm back in Akron full-time, but I spent about a year out in the West Valley. Because I couldn't not do anything, while in Avondale, I became the city engineer for Avondale, and I became the assistant division manager for development and engineering services. I kind of joke you can take the former employee out of Akron, but you can't take Akron out of the former employee, because each and every day I followed Ohio.com and I followed news outlets, I followed the city, any websites I could get my hands on just to understand what was going on in Akron and try to stay a part of that. Avondale has about 80,000 people and really growing quickly over the last few years. If you know the West Valley, Goodyear, the Cleveland Guardians complex was 5 minutes from where I lived. Buckeye, Surprise, just growing quickly. What I saw out there, and it's what I want to stress tonight, is I think growth is what's going to ensure the long-term viability of Akron. We had about 12,000 units under construction or design in Avondale when I left. And I think this, when we look at the White Pond project, I really think that growth needs to continue to be a high priority in our city. You know, we talk about 250,000 by 2050. That's been kind of something we've talked about the last few years, and I think that's a good goal. I think we need to actually work towards that. You know, increasing our population, taking opportunities to build housing units, as I say, is critical to our future. You know, once again, my 30 years here, there's no question development decisions are horribly difficult.
Mark, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
but your time is
My
up.
time's up.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let me just close by saying I just support the White Pond project, and I ask that City Council support that project for the long-term viability of this city.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. John Sharp?
John Sharp. We have come. Hey, Mark,
trying to get away from separating the mayor. Too much slime running down the mayor's gonna get on. You might have to run as an independent. Marco, 75 years, 7 century public service, 10 years old. Mama raised me that way. Still living in the ghetto. We love you. I'm running. I'm his hitman. That's what it is, mess with me. I'm your lawyer, Marco. I'm your lawyer too, cutie pie. Look at me. Anybody mess with you, they mess with me. I grew up in South Akron. I'm bad. A White Pond. Injunction. Filed my first one and saved $500,000 home. Remax. Sit in before they go. Bring bail money.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Apostolette?
Speak to my heart, Holy Spirit, and give me the words that will bring new life. On the wings of the morning, the dark clouds will melt away. Please, in this room, speak to my heart. I hear a lot of things this evening, and I came this evening. I am concerned about the White Pond project because it concerns many environmental as well as community issues, but that's not why I'm here this evening. I know Attorney Sharp has his way of doing things, but I want to salute him and honor him this evening for being one who stands and fights for the constitutional, the human, and the civil rights for the people of the community. His presentation may be his own unique way, but he's a fighter for what's right for the people. I come this evening because, as the scripture says, ye that put far away the evil day and cause the seat of violence to come near, cause the seat of violence to come near. The government has become destructive to the people. When the case of Engel versus Vitale took prayer out of the schools, it took prayer out of the hearts of the people, and the government became more destructive to the people. And this took place in 1962. This was also in violation of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution for our religious freedom rights to have prayer wherever we would like to have it as Christians. And the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 was to reinstate that, because prayer has been taken out of the school and out of the hearts of the people in the name of Jesus Christ. The power for the people is destitute. I stand to you this evening. I am the 9th cousin for George Washington, the first inaugurated president of the United States of America who freed slaves. His wife did not free the slaves. Therefore, and I'm also the great-granddaughter of Reverend William Pinckney and Reverend William Jackson, so I'm in there in a twofold way. I'm also the relative to Charles Coatsworth Pinckney, who signed the Constitution, which is being violated by violating the people for the White Pond, violating the people for prayer in the schools, violating the people in many different ways. And I'm here today to let you know that this is not sufficient. I've asked for meetings with legislators who won't meet with me. I've asked for a meeting with community leaders who won't meet with me, so I'm wondering today, who is really for the people? I want to know what is really happening for the people. Because when you took prayer out of the school, you took the prayer out of the hearts of the people.
Thank you, Apostolette. Is Carol Murphy here with us tonight?
Good evening. My name is Carol Murphy. I live at 166 Lounsdale Avenue, which is directly adjacent to the proposed White Pond project. I live next to the wetlands. I've been in that home since 1995. I moved here from a major city, and I too at once was young, a long time ago. But yes, I moved here as a young person with a mid to high income, ones you're all trying to attract now. I am here to read some information from the meeting that the Save White Pond had. Thank you, Councilman Neal, for hosting us. So I would just like to start, and we will continue reading some of the information that we gathered that evening so that you can understand some of our concerns. In early September, the council unanimously voted to approve the initial permit for a luxury housing and retail development, which would destroy the 60-plus acres of forested and historical wetlands in the neighborhood where I live. Since then, concerned citizens have been attending council meetings, organizing in their neighborhoods, and speaking up, and I believe you've seen this. On October 20th, the citizens met with Mr. Councilman Neal and the developers, but citizens left feeling really unheard and unsatisfied. In response, neighbors and local organizers led to a meeting on November 2nd, where around 60 attendees gathered in the Northwest Library to express their concerns as a community. Neighbors have led community actions like the community hike and have written open letters, editorials, and countless emails. While many citizens have been blocked from speaking at meetings, so many others have attended these regular Monday meetings, spending a collective average of around 320 hours participating in public comment. A petition was started to ask for a 6-month pause on the vote. To date, this petition has collected 650 signatures overall. 317 of those signatures came from Akron. Yes, we're from Akron. Mostly wards 1, 4, and 8. 470 signatures from Ohio overall, from people in Copley, Kent, Stowe, Talmadge, Ravenna, and Cleveland. All areas that would be affected by the wetlands destruction as climate change honors no human-made boundaries. Last week, November 29th, some 200 people gathered to learn about the development and to share their questions and concerns, writing information, questions, and concerns on sticky notes, which you will now hear about in terms of the different themes we'd like to present to you tonight. So I appreciate you listening to us, and I'm very happy to be able to share this information with you this evening. Thank you very much.
Carol, thank you so much. Zach?
Hello, so I'm Zach from Ward 1, and I'm still opposed to the White Pond development, as I have been from the beginning of it, and for many reasons that have been spoken over those 320 hours of comments. I would like to say that I'm grateful that we had a public meeting on Tuesday, and I'm very thankful for Councilman Neal and everyone, all of the organizers that were part of that, and the council folk that came to be a part of that. I think that's a really good first step, and I think it's a good opportunity to learn how to do these processes better now and going forward. It's always a shame that it has to happen when, after the public asks time and time again for that process to happen and finally happen. It's a shame it took that much to get to happen, but I'm glad that it did. It was hard. The one aspect that was really hard for me to stand there, and I'm glad that the mayor was able to make an appearance. I wish it wasn't with a flank of police officers that was very intimidating to many people in the room. And I wish that he would have been able to stay for the whole meeting and actually seen what a public process looks like, as I've not really seen him finish a meeting. So I'm grateful. I hope that that continues. I hope that that's not the last public step that happens in this process and processes going forward. We have a lot to learn, and that was a good step. Also, today is World Soil Day, and I would like to use that opportunity to mention that part of the White Pond issue is the soil contaminants that are there. Arsenic and mercury are in astronomically high levels for any residential development based on the study that the city provided. So that's a very dangerous thought, very dangerous chemicals. We already have a lot of health disparities in our city, and I don't think dredging them up is going to be helpful to those statistics in any kind of way. And then I think the last thing that I would just like to say is that I'm glad that we have an opportunity as a public to speak. I'm not sure how many of these words mean much to many of the people in this room. Talking about the soil, the consensus in the scientific community is that we have about 60 years left of being able to grow food on the planet. And as a person who will most likely possibly still be alive as we face famines, I feel very unheard. I feel very disrespected by a body that continues to ignore environmental issues, that continues to not realize that nature happens in an ecosystem. When you pull on one little thing, it doesn't just affect one little thing, it affects everything. And environmental issues need to be at the heart and center of all of our discussions, of all of our debates, of all of our dialogues. And until that happens, I feel like our future is just being completely ignored. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing. Beth Vild.
Hello, my name is Beth Vild. I'm also a resident of Akron, Ward 9, I believe. I have here paperwork for all of City Council. This is a 7-page document conducted by the Big Love Network, on which I am the CEO and Director of Programming for, being ensured that the Akron City Council is aware of our questions and concerns. I will go over just a few of these at that time. The White Pond project impacts the beneficial use impairments of BUI 14A, BUI 6, BUI 3A of the Ohio EPA. Wetland peat has 40% more retention with stagnation as a sponge, and peat filters out pollutants, which will be more important as we get to the actual soil tests. There's a recommendation of a 120-foot buffer to wetlands and development, which we do not see being respected within the development plan, as what is set by local riparian setback ordinances, which Akron still has yet to adopt, but has had on their table for 2 years. The Big Love Network recommends that Akron City Council delay the sale of the property until a full site environmental assessment, including an ORAM, VV, amphibia, and other species list of bird habitat assessment includes bats and other species. We also request that scientists are allowed on the property. This is my second week here asking that scientists are allowed on the property. Here you will also see an outline of important pieces about the Pigeon Creek NIPSIS plan, which the city agreed to adopt in April of 2019, and this development directly affects the critical area 1, Shoglag Run, which you can see is in this striped area of this map here. And it would specifically endanger the entire Tuscarawas riverbed, which goes through the whole Muskingum riverway, which affects the Ohio River and all the way down till we get to the Gulf of Mexico. So what we do here is important. As you can look through the human health concerns that we have, there are very high levels of cadmium, arsenic, and mercury that are astronomically much higher as of a 2016 study for the residential use recommended. I know that City Council had a hard time finding the recommendations for residential use. It is pretty alarming. I will leave you all to look through this, but please notice that there is things called a balanced growth initiative that would actually help the city develop smarter and not with deterring people of my age from living in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Uh-oh. Andrea Nickcap.
I'm Andrea Niekamp, Ward 8. Before I start with the group project we're doing here, I just want to say that a few hours ago I received a robocall that there was a weapon confiscated at my child's school. I noticed that I go through a metal detector every time I come in this building. I noticed there's multiple police, and I noticed that the mayor of Akron was flanked by 6 police officers at a community meeting. So I'd like you to think about the children in the city and the teachers who are, every day are dealing with fights, knives, and guns. And maybe the city needs to look into their priorities. At the community meeting, we collected nearly 300 sticky notes with concerns, comments, and questions. Tonight, organizers and neighbors alike will read nearly every single comment aloud, putting every citizen comment into the public record, giving each question and comment the respect it deserves, respect that is due, respect that has not been given by this administration and legislative body and its processes. A cumulative analysis of this public engagement will be delivered to council and city officials by the end of the week. It is our hope that council and the administration will take these seriously and either drop the development deal or pause vote to answer the public's many questions. So here's the questions. How will this affect runoff, flooding, storm sewer issues, which are already challenging? This is too fast, more studies are needed. We need our local flora and fauna. Humans cannot survive in a vacuum. We are only one piece of the ecosystem. I have concerns about biodiversity and tree canopy are critical to our community's health and well-being. This is the first priority for design and development. Wetlands, bogs hold carbon. The last thing we need is to release more emissions. Turtles are great and plants and water deserve study. Mature trees should not be raised. I have concerns about nature, deer, and other animals. I moved here for proximity to parks. The White Pond exit should showcase Akron's park-centricness. I have concerns about nature conservancy, sale, conservation, easement. I have concerns about flooding. I would rather see older housing renewed than developing wetlands. Does Cuyahoga Valley National Park or Summit Metro Parks have interest? Worried installations will cause wetlands someplace else. This site was used as a gravel storage facility and peat mine for Phelan peat and humus and a dump for household trash. It is not a pristine site that needs to be preserved. Concerned about environmental issues, traffic, proximity, access to roads, no need for stores. We have several stores in the area. Rebate for purchasing homes, who benefits? Trees are the lungs of the planet. They should be cared for and treasured, not cleared for money. Environmental, there is no way to protect existing
I'm sorry.
wetlands. Okay.
Thank you. Chris Nickcap.
Chris Niekamp. Madam President, members of council, members of the city, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your service to this community. I rise today in opposition of the White Pond development and asking you to do your duties and asking you for a pause. In 2004, the property directly adjacent to the White Pond development was transferred to a group called Pre-Development. In the deed transferring that property, you stated that as a requirement in that deed, you devote the premises to and only in accordance with the urban redevelopment plan for the White Pond urban redevelopment area enacted by this council in 2000. There is no similar plan for this development. There is no way to enforce any of the provisions that you claim that you're doing. There's no teeth except unless you put it in the deed as you did in 2004 and required that developer to follow the plan. You have no plan. You have no teeth. This putting the cart before the horse. Ideas about the traffic. These are the important ideas. You claimed today I saw something come out that you did a traffic study. That traffic study was not done properly. A traffic study, it should be an urban traffic study that rates the property between A and F, and then you determine where you stand today. And then you force the developer to pay the costs if it goes from, let's say it's a B, and it's not, it's like a D right now. But if it goes from a D to an F, then that developer pays the cost, and it's in the deed. It's required because you've tied it to the plan. You haven't done that. There's no teeth to what you're doing. You need to pause, get the plan together, and then transfer the property if you're going to go forward with this. You need to listen to these people. They have some legitimate costs. The concept here is the highest and best use of this property. Let's determine all the cost. Let's determine the benefits, which haven't even been disclosed. I'm not anti-development. We need development. We need to improve population. You haven't even told us the benefits. We don't even know what you're getting out of this, and you haven't tied the developer to pay the cost. This can be done in a proper way by every other city's doing it. Your developer is gonna, hey, Mr. Triton, we got a traffic problem. Oh, here's my attorney. You didn't put it in the deed. Shame on you. I'm not paying for that. Good luck. Who's the attorney who's approving this? Who's doing this development? Who is in charge here? I haven't even got started.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Nick, your time is up.
Give me an hour, give me a jury.
Thank you. Is Carl here with us tonight?
Good evening. I want to thank, first of all, the council for sending all this information to us. I appreciate that. We know what's going on with the meeting. Something in here, though, I wondered. Under number 10, ordinance concerning White Pond, it says property is not needed for any public use. Not needed at all. We don't need a park. We don't need to keep the wetlands. We don't need that. It is not needed. It says right here. I haven't seen anything, though, why it's not needed. You know, it's just a statement. Who made this statement? I think it's needed. First time I came in front of you, I mentioned Barrettown. I even sent information, what I had in Auburn, how they turned a vacant piece of land into a beautiful, beautiful park. And it was paid by a lot of different things, a lot of different groups. And I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Councilman Neal, outstanding meeting, outstanding get-together. A lot of people there, a lot of people I recognize, and most of them were very concerned of what's being done here. We do need housing, that's for sure. We sure do need housing, good housing for all of our people. We need to draw people into the city. I love this city. And White Pond's not the answer. It is not the answer. Now, up the street where the old Perkins building was sitting, that could be the answer, very much so. That is a very beautiful piece of land. I'm sorry that we lost Perkins. My son went to that school, my wife went to that school. But that could be developed, and it should be developed. And I hope they continue developing. It seems to be at a standstill, but I'm sure they have their reasons. That's okay. There's other places too you can develop, but in a peat moss? When I moved here, my wife told me, said, there's no way they're gonna do any building on this. There's no way. People that Mr. Neal's, Congressman Neal's thinks that you can't build on this. There was at least 4 or 5 peat moss, all that stuff. I don't know. I think, and is the builder, once they build it, are you going to be the ones that are responsible for what might not work out? People getting sick? Is it going to say, well, way to go, council. Way to go. My kid's getting sick. My basement's flooded. All these animals are going to be without a home. I really hope you would table this, at least. Table this to April. A lot of people said, let's take some time and think. I thought those yellow pads were excellent. were excellent. I think I'm out of time, but thank you very much. Thank you for your consideration.
Carl, thank you. Ben Gifford?
Ain't no black people live in White Pine? I ain't hear none.
My neighbor.
I'm just going to ask that we maintain order in the audience. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Gifford. I live in Ward 4. Even if you think from the bottom of your heart that the White Pond development is amazing for our city, which I don't think all of you do, doesn't the sheer lack of democratic process behind this mammoth decision give you reason for pause? We live in a representative democracy. You have these jobs because, in theory, you've been elected by us to make the decisions that we would make. Well, we are here week after week telling you to pump the brakes. We've collected more than 600 petition signatures in under a week to tell you plain and clear that we, the people who live here, do not consent to Triton's development plans for our public land. Doesn't this give you any pause at all? You're all public servants, and I think we need to ask the question, at least rhetorically, how many residents do you need to hear from before you put aside whatever personal feelings or interests you may have to actually adopt a popular stance? I want to talk about the city's case for this development. The argument I heard from Sean Volman last Tuesday was facile and quite frankly embarrassing. If the city has been losing population, why does that automatically mean more housing? Population and housing are not synonymous. Mr. Volman said we've lost 100,000 residents since the 60s, like we misplaced them. Did we lose their houses too? Did we maybe in some cases demolish perfectly good homes and even entire communities for other fail ideas? And the worst argument I've heard is the property's been up for sale for 15 years. Why the sudden interest? Yeah, good, okay, why the sudden interest to sell? We in the community have busy lives and jobs that aren't just looking for real estate to gobble up. There are vacancies at the Bowery luxury apartments downtown. Why do you think this will be any different? There's this entire if you build it, they will come mentality around the White Pond development that makes a ton of assumptions about the demand for expensive rentals near railroad tracks in an area that will be prone to flooding. We're not going to grow Akron's population by building shitty new houses on our wetlands that could exist literally anywhere else. And I say shitty because they will be, despite the price tag. We've seen no evidence of Triton's construction record, but I'd wager Triton will use non-union labor and cheap materials because that's what these kinds of parasitical real estate holding companies do. The alternative plans suggested last week by Wren, a plant library, an ecological research center, a green cemetery, those are unique, those are inspiring. Those are the kinds of things that I think will bring people to Akron. And leading up to that, we should look at redeveloping vacant spaces to add new housing. But right now, don't follow the lead of our lame duck tyrannical mayor, who looked positively mobbed up on Tuesday, standing alone with his 6 uniformed cops. Delay this vote or kill it in committee. Let us flesh out the alternatives for White Pond. We can do better than Triton. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Gaffney?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Council, for giving me a few minutes to speak in front of everyone. So I am from Triton, the parasitical people, or whatever I guess we're called. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about this project. This land was purchased by the city for the express purpose of development. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had it, right? You wanted to put an office park there. Your actual stated plans were to fill in the White Pond area, the water, for parking, effectively, which you'd need for an office park, and pretty much clear-cut the trees. You've sold portions of it already to First Energy, you've sold portions of it to Sickage, and it would have been great to bring a lot more development in. We look at our plan as a great alternative and a great balance between the environment and development. We are not building on the wetlands, despite what people are saying. We are going to end up with about 43% tree canopy, which is the actual target for the city is 40%. Your average tree canopy is about 33%. So we feel we're doing better than average. In relation to the traffic study, which is the other objection, and people have rights to object about White Pond and filling in the water, which we're not doing, and cutting down trees, which we're not doing. We're trying to balance that correctly. We have to develop on something. And then in relation to traffic, in reality, actually the AMETS team, which is the city's transportation authority, who are experts in this space, just recently, actually today, came out and highlighted the fact that the height of traffic on White Pond was in 2006, where the traffic was around 12,700 cars per day. The traffic today is at 8,000. Now, for those of you who've lived in major cities, traffic is always a problem in growing cities, Atlanta, Charlotte, things like that. Not having a traffic problem, ironically, means you're not growing. Even after we add the development and put the products in, we're going to end up at about 10,300 cars a day. There or thereabouts is an estimation, which is less than what White Pond currently had in 2006, which is about 1,200 cars less than that. In addition to that, the city had already invested in the road and the traffic intersection there. So we do feel we have the right balance between environmental and development in this project, and we just wanted to spend a minute and articulate those concerns. And we're excited to invest in Akron. We care a lot about Akron. I've raised my kids here in Akron. I do live here in the Copley-Akron area. I emigrated to Akron as well. So we're not some nameless out-of-town folks who are trying to develop here. We're actually had a vested interest to bring investment into the city, which we've done in opening our office here. And we moved our office actually from Fairlawn into Akron purposely to do that. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's input. And hopefully we'll reach a good conclusion in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaffney. Garrett, I'm going to ask that you maintain order. Garrett, now we'll move to the next person. Okay.
Hi. I live in Ward 8 within walking distance of the White Pond development. I just purchased my first home there in May of this year. Shortly after, I discovered the White Pond development and have made many great memories there, walking my dog and enjoying the nature there. First, I am thankful to the community of people for coming together to prevent the destruction of this area. I am also thankful for the city council members who have been listening to and considering the things that we are bringing up. Thank you for giving me these 3 minutes to speak up. The woods and wetlands throughout this city give the developed parts some space to breathe. This is the reason I chose to move here. It is peaceful and full of nature where I live. If most of the habitat on the White Pond development is gone, will the wildlife that I enjoy in my backyard find somewhere else to live? Will it even survive? The man from Triton said last week that they want to build coffee shops and ice cream parlors there for the rest of the community to enjoy. As someone that makes up part of this community now, I can say we do not need any of that stuff here. There's plenty of that stuff on Market Street. What we don't have is a lot of walkable, wooded spaces within walking distance. Why would you destroy this resource for our community? When I hear the mayor respond to our concerns with something along the lines of, just because they are not happy doesn't mean we have to change what we are doing, I get the impression that he is not listening to any of us. I understand that there cannot be progress made if you address every single concern someone has, but this is a giant group of people that live here telling you not to go forward with this. We want you to make decisions that benefit the people that live here, not in the interest of only making money. If Akron decides to destroy this natural land, I will be very disappointed by this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Sharissa Soulful.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of Akron City Council. I come before you again to ask you to please consider not developing on White Pond Drive. As somebody who's heard the justification of the City Planning Committee, I keep hearing that more houses will bring more people and more people will lower taxes. And I challenge this thinking. I do not feel that that is something that we have evidence of happening. This city has already taken on a lot of development, and I think the wise thing would be is to finish what we've started and see if this stuff happens. See if these new developments are actually bringing in people and lowering our taxes before, putting it out that we'll just do more and more and more of it, and this is what you're gonna see. You're doing the developing. Let's see how it pans out before we bite off more than we can chew. Developing on a wetland would be a mistake, but what was really disappointing to me at the meeting is when I sat down with the mayor's developing committee, I just was asking for, look, can we make a compromise here? I might feel better if we did an endangered species survey. I've walked on White Pond. Right here is a tree that has these ephemeral pools. These are not the ponds. These ephemeral pools are where amphibians like frogs and salamanders breed, because they have to lay their eggs in an area that's not a big body of water so the fish don't get them. And I just feel like we seem to think that the economy and the environment go hand in hand. They don't. Sometimes we drive our economy at the expense of the environment, and we're kind of dooming ourselves in the process, because healthy ecosystems, they require 10 times as much plant life as any animal. We're all supported by plants. They're the only things that actually produce. They're photosynthetic. They make all of our food, all the sugar, and all the oxygen. Without 10 times as many plants as animals in any ecosystem, it collapses. Systems get backed up and you have major problems. So this develop until we can't develop anymore attitude is really not helping us as a species. What we need to do is, sit back, wait a little bit, examine things. We should get an endangered species study. This is a beautiful area, and the only way that this natural space has any value to anybody is until it gets chopped down, and that's wrong. There's value to this park. There's, habitats for a bunch of things that eat insects. There's habitats for fish that eat mosquito larvae, and that also great blue herons eat, and the city residents love to see those. There's value in us taking walks in areas like this, and it helps our psychological well-being. Without areas like this, people are going to have more psychological depression, and if we get rid of all the green space, we are going to get rid of what Akron needs to sustain our population and get rid of what Akron is really needing and what makes us special. We are a forest, and we are a beautiful ecosystem, and if we keep chopping down it's not going to support us. So slow down. We've got a lot of development. Leave White Pond alone.
Owen Hardy. Yeah, I was going to say you can stay in the same spot.
I'm Owen Hardy. I live in Ward 8. I'd like to clarify some of the Beacon Journal wrote. I'm not a minister. Thank you. I've listened to quite a few speakers this evening, and I'm very grateful to listen to them. I'm grateful to be here at the council. So I'll begin with this. This is a rubber city, not a rubber stamp. So to think about that, do you have to follow the mayor in everything he says and does? You, council people, are elected officials. The mayor is hiring people, his planners. His planners work for them. The planners we spoke to over at the Schweitzer Hall at St. Sebastian were animate and gave a mantra, we did our due diligence. Did they do their due diligence? I kind of question that. What has Akron done? Akron has done many projects or urban developments upon the White Pond area, and if it wasn't for the EPA back in '72, that 77 got in prior to that, the West White Pond development was labeled behind the JCC, was labeled as wetlands. Across the street, directly across the street, is the property we're talking about right now. The property is what Trident Properties Ventures would like to have and put a development there. If the EPA was around before 77 was started in that part of Akron, it would not have happened. It may have, may not have. What is the EPA? What were their initiatives in the beginning? Water and air. What does White Pond development have? Water. And what does the canopies of the trees do? Air. These are predominant things that we definitely would need from that end of it. Now, getting back to the financial aspect, the property was purchased back in the early 2000s. Well, first it was Fairlawn Supply bought from Zazo, that 20 acres. And then Zazo sold out for about $2.4 million. And Hanson Gravel, which bought from Fairlawn Supply, bought it for $4.4 million. So it's roughly around $7 million. If I look at council today and I say, hey, you're selling this property for how much? $750,000? Okay, let's take that away from the amount of money that Akron has just spent for that property. That amount of money for each ward here would be a little less than $500,000. Why doesn't everybody sitting at this table in front of me turn around and say, where's my $500,000? You're giving this property away. You're not doing your due diligence. just because the mayor's telling you that they want something, you have to follow it. His planners, if the mayor's not here in the next election, these guys will be gone.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Hope Bruce? Is Hope here? Okay.
I live in On Drive, and I would like to read more of these comments. Environmental. There is no way to protect existing wetlands while construction in this development. The development, as proposed, will kill and displace endangered and/or at-risk wildlife. Wetlands should be preserved. It is difficult to build on wetlands. So many deer on roadways already. This will drive more to run before cars. If there are actual endangered species, how do we protect them? Seek environmentally friendly alternative. Mother Nature keeps wetlands wet. We've lost too many species to endangerment already. I have concerns about urban heat effect, climate change. Let's not contribute to climate change more. Move to innovative suggestions for studies, protection, nature trails, etc. Protecting wetlands is impossible when area is developed. What is an accepted balance between development and green space? Worried about flooding during rainstorms. Almost no native Ohio plants are sold in stores and landscaping suppliers. This development will contribute to non-native pushing out beneficial flora. This property is closer to a brownfield than a park or a gardening site. The old oil wells are a huge problem for the city to take on. Did not idealize this land as some pristine wilderness. We're losing tree canopy. Focus on planting and preserving existing canopy. The mayor said it was a pooling water. Is it a wetland or pooling water? Human-created pollution, salt contamination, herbicides, pesticides, chemical fertilizers, plastic trash, automobile pollution. I have concerns about the environment, Indiana bat, amphibians, mammals, deer, and coyote. I have concerns about environmental study. I would love to see a protected park. I'm concerned about the flooding that could cause in this area. Don't cut down all those trees, too many buildings. Why not a park? Worried about losing animal habitat. I am concerned about the loss of biodiversity and empty buildings. We already destroyed the vast majority of our wetlands. Now abandoned buildings sit empty. We cannot lose what we have left. Green spaces are a luxury. Destroying green spaces lead to an increase in asthma for the residents and hurt local ecosystems. I have concerns about more pollution from drive-through. I have concerns about negative effects on the wildlife. I have concerns about overpopulation and crime. How will this affect runoff, flooding storms, sewer issues? What are we already challenging? This is too fast. More studies needed.
Thank you, Hope. Harrington Hargrove.
Good evening, Council. Harrington Hargrove, 1008 Laurel Avenue, Akron, 44307, Ward 3. And I guess I'm in the line of complaints against this city because you don't do nothing for the people that come before this council. You ignore us. I live in Ward 3. Every one of you know where Ward 3 is. My community is blighted. It's been blighted. This council refused to give us opportunity. You do not listen to the people that you represent. Madam President, I've asked you for that denial letter of Harper dollars. I also want you to give me the denial letter for the community development block grant money because my community in Ward 3 can't seem to get that as well. And I want this letter tonight. I want it on city paper. I'm deserving of that, and the black community is deserving of that. All of you know we've been redlined in Ward 3. All of you. You don't represent us as a council in our needs. You don't. 40 years I've been coming before this council in Ward 3, and no one can give us anything, no one. I never heard this council make a favorable report to do anything for the black community. Tonight I've heard plenty. But in my community in Ward 3, I've asked the federal government to come here and investigate this city. I want you to know that. Because we have been denied. Who's the voice for the people? Who's the voice down here? As council people, and you know the wrong that's been perpetrated against us. You know this. You ride by this community all the time. Sometime in your venture, you have to come down Thornton Street. You have to come down Rhodes Avenue. You have to come down Vernon Odom. You have to in your travel. And you can't see the blight in our community? Madam President, I would like to have that tonight. And it's law people in here. I'm entitled to a denial letter. I am entitled to this. A lot of things you can redline me on, but not this. So I would like to have that tonight before I leave, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Fran?
Hello, my name is Fran Wilson. I'm going to continue reading the many public inputs from the meeting last week. Little trees that get trimmed to look good don't really become a big tree canopy in 20 years. 50+ years ago, Congressman John Seiberling started a movement to reclaim Cuyahoga Valley, now the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Now Cleveland and the Cuyahoga River are no longer the mistake on the lake. Please let us preserve this wetland space so that Akron does not progress to the little mistake on the little lake, Summit Lake. I have concerns about the impact on wildlife. Leave the planet and animal habitat in that space. I saw firsthand how Tropy and Ederer destroyed Hickory Street. Worried about the environmental impact of developing the wetland surrounding area, loss of green space for potential enjoyment or educational purposes. Just because city officials say it's not a wetland doesn't mean the wetland plants and animals aren't living there. I have personally seen mink running around White Pond Drive. We need to protect valuable wildlife. The last comment for the environmental section is keep Akron green and a little weird. I will now start reading the public concerns on history. Destroying this space before exploring its archaeological history is wrong. I have concerns about historical issues in an area that is known to be ancient Native American land. More old existing buildings should be repurposed. Preserve Akron's history, and new construction means that big environmental footprint happens. Not sure what that meant. According to the Society for Historic Preservation, the Preservation Society of Summit County, 40+ Native American communities or individuals were undiscovered in the site remain in the Cuyahoga and Tuscarawas River Valley systems. One of these sites reportedly exists within the land of the proposed development. Please spare the watershed and potential Native American archaeological site. Concern One citizen is concerned about the loss of population in Akron and the lack of a new market rate rental housing. And we'll continue this with the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Paranita?
Good evening, Council. I will continue reading the concerns that public brought up in regards to history on the meeting on Tuesday. Concern about loss of population in Akron and lack of new market rate rental housing and lack of investment in Akron neighborhoods. The proposed development addresses positively all of my concerns. Historical Akron has found on preservation. Let's hold on to that. Historical Akron has found on preservation. Let's hold on to that. Parks, natural, scientific projects, not new buildings. We could do a living history of Akron with a park. We need current surveys, double exclamation points. Historic Native American sites need preserved. Protect native land. How would the city go about doing an archaeological or historic survey? What would the cost be? Honor the people who live here. We are all indigenous to this earth. We must celebrate and protect, not neglect and destroy. Open your heart to Mother Earth. I live across the street and feel strongly that we should know if there are tribal lands to preserve. I will now read the public comments regarding traffic. Worried about traffic at Mole Hawkins traffic circle. Obviously, the proposed development will add a ton of traffic. 1 to 2 cars per household means up to 450 more cars in and out of the development for work, school, shopping, congestions, pollution, infrastructure, wear and tear, etc. Worried about traffic at White Pond exit. The highway entrances and exits are so dangerous. There's no way this development won't make it worse. We want to know how the city will address traffic issues. I have concerns about vehicular traffic, 500 to 1,000 cars for residents. I have concerns about traffic, preserving land and wildlife, tax abatement, selling land less than value. I have concerns about cutting through to Market Street, Ridgewood, and Skokaldi. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Chocolat, thank you all. 1040 White Pond is in Copley Township. Our trust owns 9 acres in White Pond, and it is not in Ward 4 in Akron. Consider this. Public transport options have not been considered, so much for those at lower economic levels benefiting. I have concerns about increased traffic, noise, pollution. I have concerns about school buses, retail traffic, supply trucks for retail. White Pond at Frank at Rail is already a mess. It will only get worse. I have concerns about public transport for theoretical residents, question mark. Last thing we need is, in this world, is more cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Paranita. Ren Kohler?
So before I continue these comments, I wanted to address the menacing public officials legislation. Are you all aware that that is straight up fascism? And you are verging dangerously close on First Amendment rights? What determines whether or not you guys are menaced? Were you all menaced when the community had to get together to release the 8 names who murdered Jalen Walker because you all would not do so? Are you menaced by us coming here every Monday and doing the things for White Pond that need to be done? We are the heroes in this story, and we are trying to save this land and save our city. I hope you all act accordingly and support us in that. I'll continue. Continue reading on history. Concerned about loss of, Concerned about loss of population in Akron and lack of new market rate rental housing and lack of investment in Akron neighborhoods. The proposed development addresses positively all my concerns. We could do a living history of Akron, protect native lands. I think I was on traffic, actually. Whoopsie-doopsie. Retail would only encourage more traffic, more congestion, and more carbon emissions. I'm concerned about traffic and the toll it will have on the roads. I think the mayor is a corrupt redacted. I have concerns about traffic study has not been done by developers. I have concerns about effects of traffic. Mall Avenue is already in dire conditions. School churches, young children, parks on the street are my concern. I have concerns about traffic problems, congestion, roadway overuse, tempers, lack of public transportation. The traffic is already bad at rush hour in and out of 77 into neighborhoods served by White Pond Drive, Frank, etc. We should not compare the new proposal to the original to decide if it is good. We should ask if the new proposal is tolerable and desirable. Does development ever reduce traffic? I am very concerned about the traffic congestion. That has to be a key consideration in traffic patterns altered to accommodate such a project. Our entrance in and out is not adequate. White Pond would need to be widened. At what cost to us? Is this even being considered? I have concerns about traffic. I travel the route to Acme to White Pond to 77 North twice daily. No more traffic on Market. I have concerns about expected population, traffic. What happens if the results of the traffic study determines the need for additional infrastructure? An actual traffic study must be done, including in neighborhoods. I have concerns about no traffic study. The wetlands are more valuable to the city and directly help with combined sewer overflows. How do you replace it? The traffic in this area is already a problem. Please don't make it worse. Frowny face. Congestion will be problematic. Why wasn't a traffic study done in advance of initiating this project? I have concerns about traffic. I will now start the public concerns on infrastructure. How do we know that the construction stays local, taxes stay in Akron? We need affordable housing. Rent higher than the median city income is not affordable. Do we care about the needs of local citizens? Can't we use some energy to get rid of lead paint instead? We don't need luxury housing. Too many high-end housing already. I have concerns about no environmental study. Rents are way too high as proposed here. We have buildings in Akron that already exist. Why develop new buildings? More studies are needed before any decisions are taken that could have lasting effects on the quality of life in Akron. I absolutely hate the idea of more retail. The Wallhaven area is plenty.
Your time is up. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yep, justice for Jalen, no White Pond development.
D. McCall.
We tend to speak of public safety, yet we never have the consideration of the people that are affected by the decisions being made in this here room. It's been made clear to the residents of Akron that money and businesses run the city. The residents of Akron in certain areas have been subjected to city-sanctioned violence by continuing to allow these out-of-state companies to continue to privatize the housing market, leaving local residents limited to options of quality housing. The White Pond project, which is catered to a creation of housing, however, is in an area that no one wants it in. When will we listen to the people that helped get you into those seats that you all are currently sitting in? The Erickson and the Wilbins homes continue to be swept under the rug while we have families living in inhumane living spaces and was brought to the attention to anyone who is anyone, yet nothing has been settled. The complaint is that we have private landlords taking advantage of residents within the city limits that help you get elected or unelected. Everyone deserves healthy and affordable housing, yet we don't see that replicated in this city. No one wants this White Pond project, from the folks living in the neighborhoods, from the organizers in the city, and those who value the neighborhood, yet the conversation still continues. We need affordable housing. We deserve those properties identified as affordable housing to be updated and the families given a chance to housing dignity, no matter what their socioeconomic background is. Housing is a need in this city, and the White Pond project doesn't provide the housing need that we are truly seeking. The White Pond project is only in the interest of city officials and contractors and not the people who voted y'all in office. I strongly recommend that you reconsider who you all work for, because we see how y'all choose to duck and dodge the real issues, yet entertain the foolery of the out-of-town businesses. Who are y'all loyal to? It seems like we must vote you all out because the people of Akron is continuing to be gone on unheard voices and ears. Again, what is public safety? When APD is taking down the Justice for Jalen Walker signs, yet we still continue to have houses for rent on these signs. We just seek accountability and we just seek true justice. When we say public safety, that means public safety within our houses. If you don't have a safe home, there's chaos everywhere. Again, y'all try to continue to build on land that doesn't need to be built on, yet we have vacant properties. We must repurpose, and we must understand why y'all in these seats. Re-election is coming up, and I need y'all to understand who y'all work for, or else we will vote y'all out, respectively.
Thank you, Dee. Stephanie Baker.
Hello, I'm here again to speak for the citizens who want to live in a city with green space. Gaffney is here to speak for the development, but that is one voice in a sea of opposition. Hundreds of citizens have united to live with green space. The citizens in this neighborhood do not have an official park that is walkable from their houses. They use White Pond to walk their dogs, take walks with their kids, or take walks to recover from strokes. Green space is what attracts people to our city. Clear-cutting the trees and bulldozing the land is not attractive to anyone. The city and the country has a housing crisis. We know that. Building luxury housing to court those out-of-towners isn't helping that. We'd love more taxes to pay for things we love: parks, roads, sidewalks, public transportation, but this is a luxury housing facility that is exempt from that for 15 years. What are we getting from this? These people are bringing us traffic. We do not have the infrastructure to support the people that are here now, let alone anyone new. The sewers are collapsing below us. I want us to see the support for the people in unsuitable housing who live here now, the people who are looking for housing in a city with many vacant luxury spacing, and the houseless. I saw tonight your newly approved slogan, "Serving Akron, Serving You." The people here are the Akron you speak of. We are the you. We have been coming for weeks to speak to the city that we want to live in. We are not being listened to nor served. When the mayor rolls into a public meeting surrounded by 6 cops, we are not being served. We are being intimidated. Regarding the budget, I'd like to ask about the labor standards that are being used for the contractors from the city, that the city employs. What are the labor requirements? Is there a minimum wage? Currently, the city is supporting business owners at the expense of the laborers, which is the majority of the citizens. The wealth does not trickle down. Administrations try this nonsense time and time again at the expense of us, the majority of the people. I must repeat that we want to live in a great city. We want to live in a city that listens to its citizens. As Carol said earlier, climate change follows no human-made boundaries.
Thank you, Stephanie. Is Brett here this evening?
Hi, my name is Brett Safran. Before I start reading from the comments from the public meeting last week on White Pond, I just want to discuss one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, the tax abatement program. Right now, the way it stands with 100% 15-year tax abatement for any residential project, that just makes no sense, and that's exacerbating the problem here. If we want to look to an example of a high-growth city in Ohio, we should look at Columbus and their tax abatement program and use that as a model to reform ours. What they do differently is they give tax abatements for affordable housing projects, for projects that redevelop blighted areas instead of building on green space. And we shouldn't have a one-size-fits-all program. We should have a targeted program that really achieves our goals and doesn't amount to a handout to the developers and projects like this. So more of the public concerns on infrastructure: who will occupy the retail spaces, more box chains? $1,600 to $2,300 per month in rent is not affordable. That's a house payment. You're already displacing the people behind Swenson's. Cost of homes and rental apartments limits inclusive access. No tax benefits to current residents. I have concerns about more polluted water. Concerned that short-sighted economic development will benefit only a small group and hurt most of the community. New developments require spending on new infrastructure. Building on established streets on vacant lots already has that infrastructure. More new infrastructure adds to the cost of maintaining it years later. I have concerns about congestion. I'm concerned that the developer has amassed around 150 properties in about 5 years, contributing to the affordable housing crisis, and now they want to build more unaffordable housing. Who is paying for the increased strain on infrastructure if no property taxes will be paid? Akron doesn't need more expensive housing options. In a capitalist economy, what incentives should the developers expect for affordable housing projects? The cost of the pilings to support building, this land is not stable to build on. I have concerns about traffic on White Pond. I have concerns about drainage. I have concerns about stray water capture and green infrastructure. I'm concerned about traffic in Fairlawn Heights. We have no sidewalks, and I fear for my children's safety. So many rental properties are poorly maintained and managed across Akron. How will this be different? I have concerns about children walking to school.
Thank you, Brett. Michelle Colopy.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Colopy, and I live at 1624 Idlewood Avenue in Ward 4. So I'm the executive director of Lead for Pollinators, and Lead for Pollinators does not support this housing retail development project on White Pond. The city and the builders state the wetlands will not be damaged, but if the wetlands are simply dumped into a retention pond, then the wetlands have been destroyed. In the 21st century, with building knowledge that protects the environment, the city needs to disapprove the creation of retention ponds on any building site, new or old. Due to the wetland nature of the land, the rental property manager should be prohibited from using any turf lawn pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides, as those toxic chemicals will drift into the wetland and kill all the living organisms of the currently healthy ecosystem. A dead wetland will simply breed nuisance mosquitoes. No amount of insecticides or larvicides will control mosquitoes in a dead water system. By allowing this development to be built, the city will create West Nile virus cases vectored by nuisance mosquitoes due to the destruction of an ecologically balanced wetland. Mosquitoes feed within 300 feet of their breeding site. If the wetlands are drained into retention ponds, an unnatural dead body of water, mosquitoes will happily breed there. The current natural wetland provides natural mosquito control. The wetland is also flood control for this area, but tenants will need to buy flood insurance due to the damage caused when decimating a wetland. Disrupt the natural flow of water based on the geology and the hydrology of the landscape, and the water will still win. But the tenants will be the ones to suffer flooding due to the loss of the wetland as flood control. The amount of asphalt created for parking for this development will add polluted runoff of toxic fluids from the cars. Road salt for the parking areas and driveways will drain into the wetland, further damaging a balanced ecosystem. Wetlands provide free ecological services such as reducing the growth of algae before the water flows to Pigeon Creek, the Portage Lakes, and the Tuscarawas River. That natural water flow supports tourism and recreation in Summit County, where City of Akron residents enjoy the beauty of Portage Lakes, due in part to the flow of water through this wetland. This land on White Pond Drive should remain in its natural state to continue to provide free ecological service to this neighborhood and the greater Akron and Summit County community for its valuable contribution to on-site and downstream tourism, a healthy community, mosquito control, pest control, flood control, and water quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We do have some individuals who are online who would also like to participate. Megan Lugo, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to continue to read the comments from the citizen meeting from last week. I have concerns about traffic. I've lived in a Triton property, had to leave from overflowing sewage. They do not know what they're doing. I will now read the public concerns on economic and sale. There are a lot of luxury apartments in the city of Akron. We don't need more, especially on wetlands. Living in Akron and buying some apartments doesn't make a marketing person a developer. Why do they get all this tax-free money? I have concerns about the 15-year abatement. Campaign contributions to Horrigan's campaign by developers, their friends, and relatives. Extremely high rent rates, unaffordable to most Akron residents. This could be a house payment that creates tax income, not tax abatement. Once built, what if it fails to attract tenants because of high cost? What then? Loss of environmental benefits of wetlands and alternative use. I'm concerned that it will not be safe to residents in 10 years. Our priority should be infill housing in the existing residential neighborhoods, not taking green space. Why is renting units in this development preferred over selling units if this project occurs? Property values go up with proximity to parks. There are few folks who will be able to afford these apartments, will only benefit rich folks and lessen diversity. Triton Property Ventures LLC is not qualified to lead this development. Their terrible landlords cannot maintain existing properties signed from a former tenant. Concern regarding retail portions of the project. This will harm the West Market corridor. Tax abatement for luxury rentals. Why does the rest of the community have to pay rich folks' taxes? Will potential buyers and renters really be willing to pay the proposed prices right next to a very active railroad? Have you heard the whistles lately? Malls fail. We don't need more strip malls. Hudson Crossing is a bad model. It's struggling and incomplete. I feel ignored by City Council and Mayor Horgan. Abatements are problematic for this and other projects being considered. 60,000 square feet of retail is a lot. That could be 80 to 20 establishments. A breakfast place is 3,500 square feet. Are these proposed houses, apartments saleable? I think about the many projects around Akron that have been total busts. Near Children's Hospital, East Exchange, Brown Street project across from old AES building, etc. I think the city should explain clearly the analysis and all assumptions that argue in favor of this project. I am not expert, but I can understand and evaluate data and explanation. I have lost trust to give the officials the benefit of the doubt. I want to see the data. Akron needs community, not commercial retail and luxury housings. I have concerns about lethal corruption. The 15-year abatement is a handout to wealthy individuals. We need new residents, but we can attract new residents without the abatement. I have questions and concerns about cost of housing. Unproductive uses result in additional tax burden on the city to maintain it.
Megan, thank you so much. Marissa?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello, my name is Marissa Little. I live in Ward 4 on Otten Drive, 2 blocks away from the proposed White Pond Reserve development. I also, with a group of passionate volunteer Akronites, co-facilitated last Tuesday, November 29th, community meeting at St. Sebastian, which also happened to be my son's birthday. So you knew I really wanted to be there. He turned 1. So thank you again to the council members who attended the Tuesday, November 29th community meeting less than a week ago. At this time, there are still 5 remaining pages out of the total 12 pages that we collected of the questions and concerns from the meeting on the 29th that have not yet been read into the public forum. In the coming days, a summary report will be sent to every council member and all those who attended the community meeting last Tuesday. We hope you will carefully review all the outstanding community questions and concerns before casting your vote on any White Pond Reserve legislation. Again, I'd like to thank you for your time and your consideration, and again, thank everyone that made the meeting last Tuesday happen. I've got the posted in my trunk to prove that it was a really great turnout. So with that, I'll use the rest of my time to continue to read from the list. So this is, again, economic and sale. I cannot afford, residents at the community meeting wrote on post-it notes this. I cannot afford to live in Akron. What happens if the builders can't complete the project? Mixed income housing is the only way to alleviate poverty. I have concerns about eviction rates. Rents at $1,600 to $2,000 are not reasonable for Akron residents who need housing. The city is giving the property away. I have concerns about sewer. I have concerns about road. I have concerns about the lighting. I have concerns about unethical funding to mayor. I have concerns about tax abatement. Population decrease is a concern in Akron, but more people will leave if they destroy green space, keep Akron green. Please support the notion of additional housing at all levels of pricing. This brings down housing cost, supply, demand. This housing is not affordable to most in Akron. We know we need housing, but this isn't the current Akron residents. Also, small businesses won't be able to afford this retail space either. We can use more housing that is in good shape, but these proposed houses are not the answer. Too much faith is being placed in what if. What if we can get wealthy folks to move in and trickle their wealth down a little? How does the city expand its tax base without new development? Is it possible that some of the townhouses apartments will be set aside for Section 8 tenants? What impact will this have on the community? Thank you.
Thank you. William Reynolds. William Reynolds, are you online with us? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello?
We
you can hear me?
We can hear you now.
Awesome, thank you. Tara Mosley, Mike Freeman, Jeff Fusco, Linda Amobian, Russell Neal, and my Ward 3 Representative Council President Margot Somerville. These are the names of the council members that have served the city in one way or another for 10 plus years. I'm glad that Councilman Neal said about running for office next year. Many of you have very well-known names. I must remind you as a voter that you are not council members for a well-known name or for any personal interest. I have seen and heard several things over the last several months that stink of corruption and government abuse. Some of you may not have done enough for your entire ward. The low-income sections, in addition to the affluent and business sections. Many of the wards are made up of all three. Your well-known names and personal reputation may not be enough to get the votes to win. I encourage you to do better and have more pride in your job than some of you have been, or some of you may find that a better option for the voters will rise up and run for representative of your wards or at-large positions. As far as the White Pond Reserve, I also attended that meeting. I'm not from around there. I'm from Ward 3, as I said, and I feel that that's important to the whole city, not just that ward. White Pond Reserve should be looked at to be potentially cleaned up, made into a walking park, and a nature preserve. There's not anything like that in Akron. I think that would be something for Akron to be proud of. I am also concerned by what I read about the Akron Beacon Journal building. Read that in an article earlier this week. I spoke to the owner, and he wants to save this beautiful building. In fact, he was in contact with Mayor Horrigan and several other people who were looking at it as a possible location for the future police department building. And all the feedback he got from the people that looked at it was very high remarks. Suddenly it stopped. So I think we need to look into what's going on there. Akron seems to have maybe too many properties that it owns. I think that the properties should be either improvement of the city or to better get these properties back on the tax rolls and get them in the hands of people that want to own the property. There was an own program in 2000. I think that was a joke. I wonder how many...
William, I'm sorry. Your time is up.
I have one more sentence.
I'm sorry.
I know of one near me that two people applied for and
William, I'm sorry.
Form denial letters.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. We just want to be fair to everyone. Thank you. Is Kristen online with us? Kristen? All right, I don't see or hear her. So that will conclude our public comments for this evening. We're now going to move into committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Freeman.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
215.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, everyone who came to speak this evening. I'll just repeat a little bit of what I said this afternoon in committee. Last Tuesday, we had around 200 participants in the community meeting. We have 470 residents who have signed this petition for us to pause and slow down in these discussions and reconsider the use of this property at White Pond. We heard 90 minutes of public comment today. We've heard many more public comments in the preceding weeks. We have to get to a place where we are valuing process as much as outcomes. I really appreciate what my former colleague, Mr. Moore, said about the need for growth and development. I think most of us share that as a goal, but I worry that we constantly prioritize seeking good outcomes over valuing process. And we've heard from many folks about the timeline here, right? An immense amount of money was spent just to acquire this property. Millions of dollars was spent in analyzing whether it was suitable for development. And now, even more money is going to be spent throughout this process. And we have to ask ourselves, at what point was the decision to develop made, and at what point did we really have residents' input? Because we've got hundreds and hundreds of people putting their hand on our shoulder and saying, hey, we don't think this has been fully thought through, and we don't agree with this. And no one wants to reconsider a decision on a magnitude like this, but we lose the public trust when people don't feel heard. And that's a common refrain across different issues that we see over and over. And we are not going to grow this community if people continue to not feel heard. I'll move on. I did also want to speak briefly about this disturbing incident that happened this afternoon at Litchfield Middle School. For those who didn't see it, a 7th grader got in trouble. 7th graders get in trouble all the time. This 7th grader had a gun. As a former Litchfield student, I was really sickened to see text message about this. And it comes in the wake of other things that we've all seen. It comes in the wake of a student at Bookdole being stabbed last week, of several fights at Ellett last Monday. Just last month, there was a stabbing at Firestone. Last year, there were kids who took pictures with guns or replica guns or whatever in the bathroom at Firestone. We, I think, all hear concerns from students and staff and community about safety, and the safety problems aren't limited to the schools, right? There's in our neighborhoods and our communities, our streets as well. I really think we need to show the residents that this is our top priority. And so we have to find some way to work together with the school board on this. We've all seen the news articles and know the controversies between the union and the administration and the Board of Education. But whether it's in our public safety committee or in meeting with the school board directly or in just conversations with the school board and the administration, the APD, and it's our officers that went and confiscated this weapon, our SROs, this afternoon. We're all in this together, but we keep seeing these really, really disturbing incidents, and it's a matter of time before something truly tragic happens. And I know we all feel that. I don't want to pretend like I alone feel that. I understand we all feel that. But we need real coordinated response as a whole community, APS, APD, City of Akron, right now. And so whoever wants to have conversations around this, I hope we can move forward on this.
Thank you, Councilman Malik. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say I appreciate what the residents and constituents have done. You know, they're doing this on their time after work, feeding family, putting kids to bed, and just by what has been shared, we know that it's very intense. But we started a process.
Can you speak louder, please?
We started a process, and I want to let you know, if we are going to honor the process, a vote does not take place next week. You do not go through a process like this and say, oh, we met, but we're going to do business as usual. We have to go over the information and we have to answer each one of these questions. First, we have to have a conversation collectively amongst ourselves. I appreciate Mr. Gaffney, I don't know if he's still here, coming down. I appreciate the constituents. But we have to go through the process. And it's a process that many of us haven't gone through. Most of the stuff that's done down here within council isn't about collaboration or consensus. It's about 7 votes. Folks, 7 votes have gotten us into the mess that we're in down here in this city. Because it's not about what's right. It's not about what's in the best interest of the community as a whole. It's about 7 votes that are usually gathered to protect or to promote a special interest. It's documented. I could give you plenty of examples. Last, I want to state, you know, it was telling when we had legislation came in that spoke to protecting us as elected officials. And to my colleague's point, many concerns have been raised about violence in these chambers. Going back before this body, when one of our colleagues, Councilwoman Sims, was here, there was a piece called Wraparound Support that was just before this body that wasn't even considered. When it was told to you that that was a plan adopted by the Board of Education for Brookville High School, Ella McWilliams, who's now working with the GAR Foundation and working with Danico Buckley Knight. It's a part of their plan. But politics kicked it to the curb. I agree with you. We've got to do something before someone loses a life inside our school. We're talking about inside our school, but since we've talked every week or every other week, we've lost a life out on the street. So I agree with you. People judge us on what we do on these issues. Judge us on how we respond to my colleagues' plea for us to come up with an answer for gun violence in our community and the violence in our schools. Because if we don't come up with an answer, don't vote us back in.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Is there anything else coming before council? Councilman Lombardo?
Thank you. Just wanted to say, I probably should have been better prepared, but you know, First Energy is at 245 White Pond Drive. I wasn't on council, boy, when it was built. I'm gonna just guess like 15 years ago. But I did work there for 5 years. So I'm just questioning, I'm wondering if all this traffic opposition, you know, came before council back then. But I'm only saying that because a great majority of First Energy employees work from home. So that traffic is no longer there. I can't say a great majority, like 80, 90%. So that traffic is not there at 245 White Pond Drive. The facility was built for probably like 2,000 people. And while I was there, I mean, people adjust. Some people came in late, worked late. Some people came in early, left at 4:10, 4:15, 4:30. So people will adjust. But again, not having, you know, full staff there at First Energy, the traffic has greatly calmed down. and I don't see any different across that 245 White Pond Drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McKittrick?
Thank you, Madam President. Heard some people talking, as well as Councilman Malik, about public safety and some of the issues we're having. I think that many times people take for granted the quality of safety forces that we have here. I want to congratulate Chief Natko on becoming our new chief. He was sought out by a community that neighbors us because of the quality of the chief that he is. I'm happy that he decided to stay here because I feel that our safety forces and the fire department will be, they'll benefit from him being our chief. We've had some great chiefs and he'll continue with that. But I want to touch on something because, like I said, I think people take for granted the aspect of what our safety forces do. And you know, Friday, November 25th at 3:15 a.m., our dispatchers took in a call of a house fire. And the house was showing flames, and there were multiple calls that came in. And at 3:15 in the morning, when we get these calls that come in, they're concerned because most people are probably asleep in their beds at that time. So we had one of our med units that was nearby that went in service, and some of our police officers responded to that location. And one of our new police officers, young police officer, along with two of our medics, went in without protective gear on because they heard that there were people inside this building. And they worked as a team. They went inside and worked together to get a 91-year-old female that was in a hospital bed out of this house and rescued her before fire companies were on the scene. And then when fire companies arrived on the scene, they went in and they searched and they found a second person and effected another rescue. And I think many times people don't realize that we have a quality safety forces here in our city that every day they go in. This isn't something unusual. They put themselves in harm's way every day. The two medics that were there, Logan Stinson, 4 years on the job, he's second-generation firefighter. Andrew Gower, less than 1 year, third-generation firefighter. So they've seen from their families what it means to give the community, and I feel that I'm very lucky to live in Akron and have such quality safety forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McKittrick, for sharing. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? If not, is there a motion for adjournment? I'm going to ask you just to maintain order, okay? I'll speak with you after.
This is what happens when you take prayer out of the school.
Apostolette, thank you. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Okay, if there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council.